Hello, Mr. Ediong. I can't hear you.
Hello, Mr. Edion.
Yeah, Ali, can you hear me? You're welcome.
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you for having me. Uh, for the past few minutes while you were speaking, I couldn't hear you. I don't know if it was from my end or from your end.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually.
I think maybe I'll have to. Okay, I have got the feedback already. Thank you so very much. Okay, I have to reintroduce the program right all over again because I learned that we had audio issues. So I was it telling us that this is environmental research. And my name is Eddie Ongsengenen and Nobong in case you did not get the name. And it's already 4 minutes past the hour of 5 p.m. West African time. And we've been having a series, West to Wealth. And the last two editions I had shared with us on the devastating impact of waste and on the environment, on our health, on the people, on even on our resources. And I had talked about how we could, you know, deal with waste in manner that is more sustainable to the environment. And I had shared the opportunities that are there. And I promised us that in the course of the series, I'll be bringing in people who have been, into the space doing something real time to see that we have uh, a space that is comfortable for everyone to live in. And in keeping to my promise, I had to look for someone that I know has been in this space, has been doing amazing stuff. And going by statistics, before I get to introduce our guest today, according to the UN Environmental Program report, we produce about 400 million tons of plastic waste every year. And that should be a cause of worry. I don't know if you're not worried, but let me tell you one thing. I had mentioned one of the classes of waste that we have to be plastic waste, and plastic has a long-lasting impact on the environment. Talking about being thrown into the ocean, or however they find themselves into the ocean, the fish will get to eat the waste plastic particles, and they get into food, and then we get to consume, and even the one that we bury. Do not just go away. So plastic stays a whole long time on the soil or wherever we get to dump them. So this should be a concern to you so that you know exactly how you manage your plastic waste. But fair enough, today we'll be talking with someone who has been into the waste management space. He's been doing a lot of recycling job and some stuff. And we have some good news again. Before now we've been streaming live on about 3 channels, but fair enough, today we are going live in about 5 different channels. And then the newest on the block is our LinkedIn guest. So if you're on LinkedIn and you're watching, thank you for being a part of this conversation. We do not take your time for granted, and I trust it's going to be quite fascinating for you. And trust me, our guest for today will be having a whole lot to share with you, and you'll be learning so much in the end. So let me introduce to you our guest for today. He's someone I admire so much. Right from the very moment I get to know about him, he's been doing something very fantastic. He is the founding partner of Ecocykle, and of course, Ecocykle have done something beyond just doing business into establishing Ecocykle Foundation, and they've been doing amazing stuff in the environment and climate change space. He's none other than my brother and friend, Mr. Aliyu Sadiq. Mr. Aliyu Sadiq has so many accolades on his shoulder, and then you could say so many feathers to his cap. He's a young man that has done so well for himself. Mr. Aliyu, welcome to Environmental Research.
Thank you so much, Mr. Edion, for having me. I'm trying to look for the feathers in the cap, but I can't find them.
Don't mind Ali. Ali is a very humble person, and when you see a humble person, you get to know not basically because they work so sanctimonious, but by the things they do, you get to know them. So my pleasure to have you, Mr. Aliyu. So we get to talk to you about the things you do, because basically you are here to inspire young people out there to take action, to see that they take advantage of what they see to be waste. And I remember in one of the series I had mentioned, sewage management as one of the waste people talk. And then I remember that I got some reactions that are, that is smelly and stuff. But out of that, people are making money from it. And Aliyu, how did the journey begin? Can you just share a brief story? What led you to becoming a waste manager? Hello, Ali, are you there? Hello, Ali. I think we are having a network glitches here. But okay, Ali has been yanked up there by a poor signal. Let me see how to bring him on again. Okay, so Ali, you're welcome back. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, perfect. I think signal has been quite poor somehow, but I pray it doesn't happen again, that we have a fluid conversation. So Aliyu, I asked earlier, and I wanted to share frankly what inspired you to moving into the waste management sector. What really led you to that? And I know what has been your background, because a lot of people do run away from things like this.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much for that. And that's, I think, is a very good question to start with. For me, I studied geography and environmental management.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, I started my advocacy and change making journey while I was still in school. And I looked at the problems within the environment. First of all, while I became my departmental president of students of geography and environmental management students, the question was, to me, it was a question to me, how can I leverage on this position to make an impact? And that question, I would say, drove me through the journey and inspired the journey. And why do I say so? These were students who were inclined to environment, but had little practical ideas or knowledge as to how to implement their ideas to solve problems. And when I look around, there were so many environmental problems. So it was a challenge to kind of um, inspire the students of the department to begin to see themselves as solution providers rather than just students. And that was how
Hmm.
we started. We started to partner with NGOs in Abuja to carry out programs. I could remember we set up the first campus chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby. Uh, that's Africa, a campus chapter where students were trained on how to lobby policymakers. So we had about 50 students trained, and that's inspired other people to want to join. We started to organize cleanups, we organized rallies demanding for the inculcation of climate education in the university's curriculum. Now that was a movement that really inspired a lot of young people. Now students of the department became much more proud of their identity. They became
Hmm.
much conscious of what they were studying because they could see themselves practically implement it. And with that background, leaving the college or leaving the confines of the university, I asked myself, with the impact I was able to make in school, um, it means I could make much more impact out of the school, out of the confines of the school. And that then became a motivation to do more even outside the school. So immediately I finished, I started to volunteer because you can't give what you don't have. So
Of course.
acquiring more skills and more knowledge was critical at that point. I knew I did some volunteering before I went for my youth service corps. Even while I went for my youth service corps, I was still volunteering for a lot of other organizations. And it was at that point that the idea of, you know, um, having a niche and solving a particular problem. And when you look at the environment today, one of the core fundamental problems affecting uh, a lot of other developing and least developed countries, and Nigeria particularly, is the issue of waste. You have enormous amount of waste littered all over the street, especially in slums, due to poor infrastructures to manage this waste, and little attention is being paid to this particular area of focus. Probably, I don't know why, but probably due to the just like you said, the foul smell. People you're perceived to be uh, a waste, waste guy and the rest. So, and then I try to link it up with issues of unemployment in Nigeria. Today, we have about 70% of young people who are unemployed. um, I think you have a lot of young people who graduate without a hope to begin to work, and that brings a lot of issues, depression amongst others. So the question was, how can we leverage on this problem to create a lot of opportunities where young people can empower themselves and solve other problems? And I think that was how, yeah, we were able to commence.
Wow. The journey from your narrative happens to be a very long and interesting one. But then, from the way you are sounding, I picked passion from your voice, and I know that it's passion that has taken you thus far. Okay, Aliyu, thank you so very much. And then you shared something of concern, and I know that that's what actually led you to establishing the Ecocycle as a business and perhaps a social enterprise. And talking about unemployment. I there are statistics from the MBAs that sometimes happen to be quite worrisome, and then when they do state by state based of segmentation of this data, unemployment data or employability data by the MBAs, and then you get to see that some states will get to debunk this data. So going by the number of persons, particularly young people who are not employed, and then the waste management space. Do you think it's something that young people all over the country, perhaps across the world, would want to venture into? What are the opportunities and how? Okay, let's begin even with the opportunities. So, what are the opportunities before we jump into some other thing?
Okay, yeah. So there are a lot of trainings I've had in the course of my journey, because I love to train people around skills for how they could sustainably manage waste. And in the course of my journey, across the 6 geopolitical zones, many a times there's this quote where people define waste as what is unwanted, but I always try to redefine their understanding of waste as a resource useful to whom it is useful for. Because
Hmm.
for you, if you dispose a tire, it's a waste to you. If you dispose a plastic bottle after drinking a bottled water, it's a waste to you. But to the next person who picks it up and then uses it to create a solution or to sell or to do something and makes money from it, you can't call it a waste. It becomes a resource. So until we venture into leveraging the entire waste and turning them into the resource narrative, then we'll be having a lot of resources that is being unutilized. The potentials are enormous, and we are yet to fully explore the potentials of waste, because when you look at developed worlds today, there's nothing that is waste. Um, the sewage from our stools are utilized into cooking gas, are utilized into electricity. The agricultural waste from the farms are being used to create cooking fuels. The plastic waste are being used to create clothes, shoes, bags are being processed into new products. When you look at, so what I'm trying to say is, even the organic waste today, that's the food waste you consume and dispose after you eat or is being spoiled, are being used as fertilizers today, which is a very sustainable fertilizer due to the conventional fertilizer that is really harmful to the environment and aquatic ecosystem species. So when you look at the entire waste that we consider as waste today, they have enormous values, but the problem is the knowledge gap, the
technology gap, and the innovation gap. This has hindered us from really sustainably utilizing because in developed, hello, Mr. Edion?
Yes, I can hear you.
Because in developed nations today, you see young people coming up with innovations, coming up with sustainable products from waste. But when you come to Nigeria, and this was even one of the inspiration of why my my idea on waste management is a bit different from the conventional, because when I looked at the Nigeria's waste management niche, there were a lot of people doing stuffs around waste, but majority focused on collecting, probably just shredding them or baling them and then selling them. It was just like part of being part of the value chain. But now that limits the amount of money or the amount of jobs that can be created by just being part of the value chain. But looking at the big picture, coming up with products from waste and localizing them, getting them into the market is the biggest way to ensure or create a circular economy. A circular economy that creates job opportunities for young people, for both men, women, children, elderly, persons with disability, creates economic value, makes the environment clean and more sustainable, and protects biodiversity species. This is when you're able um, to arrest the entire value chain
Hmm.
and come with products around it. By so doing, at every point of this value chain, there's an employment generation. But again, this system has a challenge, and the challenge is the acceptability of the product in the market. But maybe I might get to talk about that later. So that's
Yes, sir.
just some of the opportunities in this field.
Uh, Thank you very much. You said something quite phenomenal. You said that waste is something useful to whom it is it is being useful, to yeah or for. And then I quite agree with that because a lot of people do not have the understanding. They see waste to be waste, and they do not want to jump at it and see how they can make something out of it. Now, let's get to know because you've talked about how you've been able to train some persons across the length and breadth of Nigeria, and I would like to have an understanding, perhaps an insight to the things you've done across the six geopolitical zones of Nigeria. Would you
Okay,
kindly oblige us with such information?
okay, yeah, thank you so much. So I'm basically based in the north central part of Nigeria, and we try to look at territory, um, the solution providers. We believe in catching them young, empowering them to be able to be solution providers while they grow, nurturing the ideas of creativity and innovation to address some of these gaps I mentioned earlier. And we started by creating sensitization in marketplaces, communities on the impact of these problems. And then we focused on schools, in majorly secondary schools, teaching them skills on how to recycle waste, like creating um, light basic products such as flowers. Um, uh, and then we worked with a school during a fellowship in 2021, where my project was even the overall best project amongst other fellows in the sixth political zone, identifying a problem with the students, which in this school, they had a very beautiful school, but they do not have a proper waste management system. So whenever they gather their waste, once there's a little wind, it blows it off, and then the school field is so much littered. And the question was, what can we do? And looking at the idea that I was looking at trying to build a solution with the students and getting us to implement it practically. So it was a problem we identified, and we're able to now say, okay, how can we do it? We began to, sort out for plastic bottles within the school and within the school environment, and we're able to come up with a very large temporary disposal facility, constructing a structure using plastic bottles, which became now a temporary dumping facility for the schools, and the issue of waste being littered everywhere became a history because it was properly designed. Now that inspired the idea on coming up with bigger facilities than we thought about. Because when we looked at issue of open defecation, especially to government public schools that do not have proper funding, they lack toilet facilities. And this lacking of toilet facilities was breeding a lot of issues of open defecation. Young people, students would just go into the school fields with bush despite the threats to defecate, and this was a problem. So why we identified this problem, also plastic pollution was at the helm, trying to address this issue and trying to create solutions from waste. So we decided to come up with a structure and successfully, I think with a very strong partnership, we're able to build a 2 unit toilet facility using plastic 100% from down to completion till completion. And that was like a model that we launched in December 2022, where the students whom ordinarily defecated openly in the public now have a solace, a safe place to defecate. Also, women, sorry, I don't mean women, young students, young girls could actually go in the process of having their monthly cycles. They could just have a safe place to. Now, that was a really phenomenal idea. Aside that, I've been worked with Federal Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Youth, organizing trainings for vulnerable women and youth across geopolitical zones in Akwa Ibom, in Kwara State, in Enugu State, in Osun State, in so many of these states. Now, the idea was targeting most vulnerable, that is, women, young people who are not working, how they could leverage on this waste recycling skills to be able to create little small scale businesses for
Mm.
themselves. And some of what we taught them was such as the building using plastic bottles. And I can vividly remember while I was in Kwara State during one of the trainings, there was this retired civil servant who worked in a bank for over 35 years of his life. And he was opportune to attend the training, and while the presentation was done and some of the practical sessions were over, he stood up and passionately spoke. And he said, this is the first time he is really sitting down to understand something out of his banking experience for the past 35 years. And he's so inspired because he made a commitment that his next pension, he was going to use all of it to practically implement what has been taught. He was going to use plastic bottles to build animal house in his household because he's less busy. He doesn't have anything to do, so he was going to implement. So that was really, really, really inspiring to me because I felt some of these things we say are making impact. People willing to want to invest in this skill. Now that's to show you the value of waste. It doesn't just solve a problem, it also it is inclusive, it creates this social benefit and foster sustainable development. Amongst others, we have worked with some organizations in communities to help women, especially women in communities who are predominant in cutting down trees for to meet their cooking needs, cooking energy needs. And this is a problem to climate change, this is a problem to environment. So we leverage on agricultural waste, teaching these women practically how they can use agricultural waste, which is so much in abundance in these
Mm.
communities, to be able to create charcoal, um, sustainable charcoal, that's biochar, that's charcoal made from agricultural waste, to be able to serve as a second alternative for them, hence helping them to reduce consumption of trees, promoting sustainable cooking because it reduces the smoke they inhale, and also helping them to create small businesses because it's an opportunity for them to localize it in the small scale and sell. So some of these things we've done in northern parts of Nigeria, in other parts of the country, and I feel we have much more to do, but
Of course, of course. Yeah, Ali, I know if I allow you to talk, you will have a whole lot to say. Thank you very much. Then you've talked something, about the circular economy, and we've come to understand, and every young person out there should understand that at every not on the circular economy, there's an opportunity for you to jump in, either as a waste collector, as a recycler, or you could just be innovative around it. Then I saw the eco-friendly toilet you guys did in Belt. I think in, was it Abuja or Kwara? I mean, or Nasarawa. And then it's fantastic. And then it's quite innovative. And if people would want to jump on this, and I'm hoping that we will get to replicate this. I think I asked you that question. Would it be possible that we replicate this across some locations in Nigeria? And I hope that partnership would come sometime in the nearest future. And so to every young person there are a lot of opportunities you would want to jump in. Do not think that waste is just waste, and then you allow it to be there to, or then to be there to cause some very harmful impact to the environment. You could contribute your quota to salvaging the environment while making creating wealth or earning a living from it. This is Environmental Resort on ENTV. My name is Edion Singing and Dunobong. We've been running our series on waste to wealth, and this is the third on the series. And we are having a very fantastic gentleman here, Mr. Aliyu Sadiq from Ecocykle. And at Ecocykle, they are doing an amazing job. We just mentioned the eco-friendly toilet that they built in Abuja, Nigeria, some time last year. Fantastic. You need to see that edifice. It's quite amazing, and it's was built by just young people who see the need to rescue the environment while also providing solution to the problem of open defecation. And talking about open defecation, I think Nigeria is competing seriously with India, and it should be a concern for some of us that are from the coastal area. You would know exactly what I mean when you get to the riverine area, and you would see open defecation bare face, and then you know exactly what that means. That is where your fish comes from, your crayfish and everything. So it's something of concern, and then we have people bringing innovative solutions to see that we have something worthwhile. So Mr. Liu, let me get back to you. You had wanted mentioning the challenges, because I know it's not just sweet. I know, like you're saying, there should be some bitter test or sour test of it. What are the challenges that you've been facing so far? Perhaps someone will want to listen to you and then want to jump into the business that it's all good or all merry somehow. Are there challenges at all, or it's just something very sweet for someone to jump into?
I think if a woman wants to cook a sweet soup, she has to pass through the challenge of going to the market to select the best bomber, and then to spend her time cutting the vegetables. I think there are a lot of challenges, but the challenges, the glory is really accomplishing, irrespective of the challenges. Now, what are some of the challenges? I made mention earlier that there are a lot of potentials to this waste, which can really be leveraged upon, but the innovation gap, the knowledge gap, and the technology gap is one major challenge. Because when you look at today, there are a lot of research proving, a lot of trials, a lot of tests that shows that waste can produce electricity, but you can't see such kind of technology in Nigeria or in the developed countries. Most of them, you see them in the developed countries. So how many of us or young people have access to these facilities to go and learn practically on how waste can become, can be turned into electricity, which is a major gap in Nigeria. So innovation technology is a very key challenge. Secondly, in terms of the markets, I think that has to do with the mindset of Nigerians, where if you have a typical Nigerian man putting on a shirt he inherited from his father, if you bring a new shirt from LV bought from the UK and give a typical Nigerian man, he will reject it and tell you, this is the one my grandfather gave me, I'm trying to talk about the perception and the mindset of Nigerians. We do not easily accept innovation. So when ideas like this come on board, it has the acceptability challenge, and that has affected a lot of enterprises, a lot of waste management enterprises, because you come up with an idea, you make it commercialized, and then you have a very low sale turnout. So that affects the profits and scalability of some of these solutions. So that has affected the economic sustainability of a lot of enterprise relating to solving waste management problems. Also, when you look at the economic crisis affecting the country today, a lot of people are battling with financial crisis. So, a typical example, we provide waste management services because we feel it's a critical, is sacrosanct, you know, um, service that needs to be provided to help communities manage their waste, because a lot of these communities dispose their waste into dump site and into nearby rivers, within their houses. They burn them, they do this because they do not have effective waste management services. Now, even when you provide this service, you find out that people still prefer to dispose it the conventional way they dispose it, probably because they can't afford to pay for that. Not really they can't afford, they cannot prioritize to pay for that little amount of stipend to manage their waste properly. So the issue of awareness, people's level of awareness on the impact of this waste is very high, especially in suburban, in suburban and slum communities where people only think of what they will eat and sleep. That is the end, you know. So some of these things are very critical. And then lastly, and most importantly, costs of infrastructure, because you could imagine a young, okay, like for we, I would say we're just a testimony of those who started from scratch and try to just leverage on the local resources we have to maximize the impact we can make, because it's not like we have been opportune to receive super international grants. I wish we have, but I know we will. Now when you look at this cost of infrastructure, to say you want to set up a local recycling plant in your community, like the smallest scale, it's really capital intensive.
Of
How
course,
many
yeah.
young people afford that? Barely. So this issue of huge cost, and this is coupled with the tax incentive attached to importations of these infrastructures or these facilities, issues of the tax, customs, and the rest. It increases, and even when you want to locally fabricate, some of these locally fabricated are a bit challenging, because some of them do not really last for a long while, though some
Mm.
do. But then, and then again, when you look at power, so we have an epileptic power supply system in the country today. So some of these things, and when you say you want to use an alternative energy source such as gas or petrol or diesel, these are super expensive.
And you're also contributing to the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, so you could see some of the gaps and the challenges. So that has really affected the gross productivity of waste recycling in Nigeria, and it has affected the trajectory growth of the waste recycling sector in Nigeria.
Mm.
But nonetheless, we wouldn't leverage on the problems and say we won't do anything. So we have to just see how we can meander. Your ability to win the enemy in the war zone is to the ability to outsmart the enemy despite the traps he
Mm.
set for you. Yeah, so we just have to look at how
And
to look, scale up.
uh,
Mm,
and so far so good. You've been defeating the enemy in its camp, right? Because
yeah,
you've been doing tremendously well. So Ali, thank you so very much for sparing your time to be with us today on environmental research. We do not take this time for granted, ladies and gentlemen. This is our West to Wealth series, and we've been having the phenomenal Aliyu Sadiq from Ecocycle talk to us about his experience and the India. The second with regards to waste management, and we have to be very honest. And I like the honesty in his voice and how he's been able to share but meet such opportunities. And of course, we are not done. I still have to come back to you because I'm get to know exactly how it's not see how to bring in people to or encourage people to come into this space. So a lot of young people out there would say they don't have capital or something to start the business, because you've talked about the challenge and how expensive it is. What is the minimum? What is the minimum anybody would want to, if anybody wants to jump into the waste management space, for instance, because I know that area is quite very dear to you, and you are you were strong, you have a stronghold in that sector. What's the minimum anybody want to come into the sector with? Or are there other areas of converting waste to wealth that people could get involved with without really having to raise so much in terms of capital?
Okay, so let me be very realistic, and I think this would help a lot of young people watching this. Um, if you're interested in really solving a problem in the waste management field, I think the best thing you can do is to really look for an already existing organization or a company and volunteer, learn. That has a way to really teach you the loops and crannies that you need to understand. It's easy to tell you, oh, this is the amount for a billing machine, go and buy it and start. And then probably you get to take some big loans, and then you're not able to, probably the devil in the business comes up to you so early, and then you become so frustrated and give up. So the best thing is to learn. And then secondly, I think focus on not the cost of setting up infrastructure, but focus on what is that little thing you can do, what is that innovation you can do with waste personally or with a team. So you can begin to work on a research, you can begin to try some things, you could begin to test run, you could go online and look at what other people are doing and see how you can localize it. If you're able to do that, the little you do, present it to the world and apply for a lot of opportunities, you could get a lot of support financially. But to spend money to invest in infrastructure before you begin to focus on learning the skills and and coming up with your own ideas, I think that would be like putting on the shirt while it is yet to be unzipped. So that's like the 2 points I would say. So issue of the
Okay.
cost of setting up, yeah, it doesn't pull weights. I think these two pull weight more.
All right. Thank you so very much, Ali. Because some people would say, why should I go and suffer for some other person? Meanwhile, this thing you're saying, suffering, you don't really have so much skill, so much knowledge to start with. Whereas if you would have gone to learn or volunteer for an organization for some other person who is ahead of you, you would have perhaps built network in the process. I remember while I was saving, I'm a farmer, I farm, and I was sent to a poultry farm, and I used to wear slippers to work and short and stuff. And my colleague would say, "Hey, John, why are you always walking like this?" I would tell them, "These guys are paying me and as well training me," because before then I never had any knowledge of how to manage birds and stuff. But after that engagement with those people, I was paid and I was trained. And now take me to any poultry farm anywhere, and I will deal with you and make sure that you have a reward for your investment. And that's the beauty of taking your time to learn and getting involved to see that you giving your best, because while you're saving others and you're giving your best, you're also expecting to get the best in return, either in knowledge, skill, or what have you. And Aliyu has been quite frank with that. Aliyu, I have taken more of your time. I had promised that it's supposed to be a 30 minutes engagement, but seeing the time, we're already 2 minutes gone past 40 minutes into the conversation. And at this point, I would like to be taking your final thoughts. But before then, ladies and gentlemen, this is Environmental Resort on here in TV, and we've been running this series, Waste to Wealth, and this is the third on the series, and we are looking forward to having a wrap next week. We are talking about gender. Yesterday was International Women Day, and I will look forward to see so that people will not say, "Is it just men that are into the waste management space?" So I'll be looking forward to having the female, come to share our experience in the waste management space, or perhaps how they are converting waste to wealth. So, ladies and gentlemen, be on the lookout for a female guest, perhaps next week, if Jesus tarry. But today we've been having a fantastic, phenomenal gentleman, Mr. Aliyu Sadiq. So, Mr. Aliyu, I'll be taking your final thoughts. So, in 1 minute, what are your final thoughts? How would you encourage young people out there to see that they go into the space? And is there anything at all you would want to encourage them with? Just share your thought. Let me not ask you or bother you with questions.
Thank you so much. So my final thought to everyone watching this series today is that I think while I'm speaking to you now at this point about 10 million tons of waste annually are finding themselves or their way to the oceans. Nigeria is generating about 32 million tons of waste annually. Nigeria has about 2.5 million tons of waste generated annually. And this figure is increasing year after year because our population is increasing. The question you ask yourself is, with this increasing waste generation rates, would waste generation problem ever stop? If yes, then I believe we have nothing to talk here. But if no, it means there's a lot of potential and opportunities in waste, which would even be much more pronounced in the future. Begin to build your skills now, begin to learn, begin to think, and begin to explore the opportunities within your reach. Do not overwork yourself, gradually focus and be strategic. And I believe would all together solve the problem collectively. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Edian.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Ali. I like your submission, how you put it in there, and that we should, the young people out there should focus, be innovative, and see how they could contribute their quota. Do not overwork yourself. And at this point, I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Ali, for coming on Environmental Resort today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it with Mr. Aliyu Sadiq of Ecocykle. Ecocykle is based in Nasarawa, and they operate within Nasarawa and Abuja, and they've been doing a fantastic job. A group of young people doing amazing stuff for nature. And I would like to say a very big thank you to Mr. Ali for coming to share his experience with us. Like I had promised, we'll be looking forward to having a female guest possibly next week, so that we could call it a wrap on this series. And then he had shared some very phenomenal things, or things I know would be of help, particularly when it comes to the challenges and the things, the advice he gave. I would like to just do a recap of some of the challenges, and he made mention. He talked about the acceptability. So you have to be very innovative about the things you do, so that it to be acceptable by your potential client, and whatever service you want to offer with regards to the waste to world space. Or when I talk about waste to world, circular economy basically. So whatever it is your service you're offering, you should be innovative and creative around it. See how to present it to the people, that it to get them attracted to you, and perhaps wants to stay to be your client. And he talked about the market availability. He talked about the lack of training opportunities, because you cannot take for granted a place of knowledge, a place of learning. So you must at all points see that you take advantage of that, and then be it online, however you want to do, because of the climate we find ourselves, you just have to leverage on them. And then he talked about the awareness stuff, and thank God we have spaces like this now that we are doing our best to create the awareness. But in your little space, whatever it is you can do to see that you create awareness about these things, please do and do. And one of such ways you could, create awareness is by sharing this video to, the people around you. Download them, share the link with people, and then with that, people will get to know that there's an opportunity that they can jump on in the circular economy space. And then it actually advised that we should not, because you want to complain about finances and stuff. So do not look at building structure, but look at, being innovative and creative. Go and volunteer to people. Go and volunteer for people rather. Work with them. Learn the ropes in the process. With that, when you have the right knowledge, you'll be confident to see that you start something on your own. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be the sides of our engagement today on environmental research. Do not forget, this is Waste to Wealth series, and this is the third on the series, and we're looking forward to having the fourth next week. And we trust that you're learning the process and you are doing your bit to see that you take advantage of every opportunity that you have around you. Do not forget that in every waste that is heaped around you, there is money to be made. And I hope you would like to take opportunity. In fact, I want to believe that you're taking the opportunities already, because I've come to share this thought with you. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aliyu Sadiq of Ecocykle. This is Environmental Research on EIN TV. Good night.